recorded 3 whole videos the other day and none of the audio recorded. Hooray! Apple TV's latest comedy series, The Studio, might just be my favorite series of the year so far. Last week we received the first 2 episodes, and this week we are getting episode 3. I didn't have time to do a recap last week because of my schedule, but beginning this week, I have decided I'm going to try my very best to recap this show weekly because I love it that much. I love it so much. If you don't know, The Studio is about Matt Remick, played by Seth Rogen. He is a newly appointed studio executive at Continental Studios. It follows him and his team as they navigate the ever-evolving, ever-changing, chaotic film industry. Seth Rogen leads this stacked ensemble that includes Catherine O'Hara, Catherine Hahn, Ike Barinholtz, and Chase Sweet Wonders, and a slew of very famous cameo guest stars. If you haven't tuned in specifically to the first 2 episodes yet, this is your spoiler warning. There will be mild spoilers for the first 3 episodes here on out. Overall, I think this series is a loving lampoon of Hollywood and that whole infrastructure, and that is why, to me, this show works so well. It isn't afraid to criticize the business of Hollywood. It really gets in there and calls the business out on its BS. However, it's coming from a place of genuine love and appreciation for movie making and art as a whole. I think this show really wears its love for the movies on its sleeve. There's a certain degree maybe of cynicism, but this actually feels like it has a little bit of a sunnier outlook. A lot of people, including myself, have compared it to Robert Altman's film The Player, but I think this is like its more happy-go-lucky cousin, you know? I think the show's own actual construction mirrors this philosophy as well. Rogen and his partner Evan Goldberg are presenting edgy, raucous comedy through these extensive oneers that boast some truly gorgeous cinematography. The show is ridiculous and over the top. One minute you have Seth Rogen tumbling over furniture and breaking glass everywhere and bleeding, but the next we're seeing this gorgeous sunset over LA. It's very ridiculous but beautifully made. I love the choice to let all of this unfold in these elaborate one-shots. It really adds to the chaos, the tension, the anxiety, and the suffocation, but it manages to make all of that chaos feel very fluid and beautiful. As it all unfolds, everything fits perfectly in time to Antonio Sanchez's jazzy score. This is the composer for Birdman. They have a similar vibe, but I just think the score is really great and it really accentuates all of that rising action. Suffocating, beautiful, and stressful, just like me. Episode 1 sees Matt tasked with finding Continental Studios' answer to the Barbie movie, a film adaptation of The Kool-Aid Man. Matt really doesn't want to do that. He wants to push more auteur-driven work. He wants to make like meaningful film, so he kind of tries to go the route of Barbie, where we take this IP and pair it with an auteur director. Sal Saperstein, his right-hand man, played by Ike Barinholtz, constantly pushes back on him and is like, just do the easy thing, man. This doesn't have to be that deep. But Matt's like, no, we're making art. So Matt takes a big swing for something unique, takes a risk, and sets up a meeting with Martin Scorsese. Luckily, Martin Scorsese just happens to be writing a script about the Jonestown Massacre. If you aren't familiar with that historical event, it is a cult that all jointly committed suicide by drinking the Kool-Aid. That's where that phrase comes from. So Matt sees this as an opportunity to make the Kool-Aid movie, but make it like well and artistic and meaningful. I love how this episode really parodies studio's baffling response to Barbie. As soon as Barbie was becoming super profitable from the jump, we immediately saw a million toy adaptations get greenlit, and I think it parodies the way that Hollywood sees a success and immediately tries to boil it down into a digestible formula and then recreate it. Seth Rogen's talked about this in interviews, like one weekend can change everything. One risk could shift the whole industry positively or negatively. We never know what's going to work, right? However, the business side of Hollywood kind of thinks, okay, well, this worked once, we can do it 100 more times. Matt really wants to swing for something unique and take a risk, while Sal is constantly encouraging him to take the easy way. And I think this plays into that struggle of the industry as a whole. Do we take a risk and maybe like blow a bunch of money and maybe risk our livelihoods, or do we take the safe route? And I think this also is a really smart way to introduce Matt's internal conflict that kind of permeates the whole series as he's pushing between making meaningful art, making good art, and keeping the studio afloat. Episode 2 follows Matt and Sal as they get to visit the set of Sarah Polley's newest film. On this particular shooting day, they are trying to desperately accomplish an elaborate one-shot with waning sunlight. Matt is constantly getting in the way. He's constantly trying to give notes, much to the dismay of everyone on set. And I think he wants to contribute and to be liked by the talent. He wants to be a part of this artistic historical moment. There's this really interesting moment from Sarah Polley where she needs more money in order to get rights to a song she envisions for this. So she is kind of putting up with Matt's antics in an effort to keep him happy and get that budget. Meanwhile, Greta Lee is trying to get Matt to give her jet access for the press tour because she does not want to go back to the cheap way the press tour went for Past Lives. I think the cameos are excellent. You know, Scorsese, we have Buscemi in episode 1, we have Greta Lee and Polly here, and then we have Ron Howard in episode 3. They all have this disdain for Matt, but they also need him. It's this push and pull of artist and patron, right? To them, Matt is both a door and a solid brick wall. He is inhibiting them, but also enables them to accomplish their artistic endeavors. Speaking of Ron Howard, in episode 3, Matt is tasked with giving Ron Howard a note on his latest film. Matt and his entire team love the film until the last 20 minutes when they arrive at a baffling sequence that they all collectively despise, and Matt struggles with the idea of giving Ron Howard the note to cut it. He feels like he can't do it because he had a prior snafu with Ron Howard and doesn't want to be disliked. And ultimately, it is for the greater good of the film, but it showcases the struggle of letting artists just present their vision uncompromised, despite how personal some of it may be, versus the critique of it and cutting it down into something a little more digestible. It's really interesting because, like, yes, this is a very personal thing for Ron Howard and his fictional film in this episode, but also the cut is for the best. Sometimes having an outside eye look at it with no personal connection can kind of see the forest for the trees, so to say. Overall, I think the show is excellent. It's so thoughtful and smart about the way it gets into the push and pull of art versus business and how we can't necessarily do this art without the business side as it stands right now. Matt's character is so interesting because he himself believes he's an artist despite the fact that no one else agrees with him. And he has this passion for movie making and he wants to do good things, so he's really trying to advocate for his talent and for good stuff to be made, but is also trying to keep the studio afloat so he can continue to do the art, you know? I think Seth Rogen is giving his best performance yet. He and Catherine O'Hara specifically are Emmy worthy. I really hope they get some love Emmy season. I think this show is gonna show up really well in the comedy category. I'm really rooting for it. It's a delight. If you haven't watched it yet, it's not too late. Get on it. It's really easy. It's really fun. It's really smart. If you are at all a film fan, you're gonna love it. If you're not immersed in like film Twitter, I still think you're gonna love it. Give it a go. I promise you won't regret it. Thank you so much for tuning into this, and make sure you come back for my recap on episode 4. I'm going to try very hard to keep up with this. I promise. As always, make sure you do everything you're supposed to do with a YouTube video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow me everywhere, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!